There is a sun in this metal, Porpha. See how it shines? Hear the beat of the workshop. See how tempering the metal changes the dark storm colour to one of beautiful purple blue.
Like a bruise.
Come now, little spark. Why don't you like the idea of working at a smithy? You are going to have to find work at some point, you know.
The work is hard. You are big and strong, but I am not as strong as you, and so the work does not come as naturally to me.
Rubbish. Anyone can become big and strong like me if they only put their mind to it.
I know my father takes a genuine pride in his work, and I would like to make him happy by following in his footsteps, but how can I? I am neither good at the work nor naturally talented at it. If I work long and hard, perhaps I will get better in time, especially because he is so patient with me. But that doesn't stop the work from seeming too hard now. And besides, if not blacksmithery, what am I to do? There is no profession I excel at, except this is what I'm good at. It's not exactly a respectable profession, though. I know my father would thoroughly disapprove, and with good reason. It's not my fault, it's theirs. It was Cupid that first led me down the wrong road. He dazzled me with his fine hair, his fine eyes, and best of all, his body. It was like I had been thrown into the sky and had no idea where I was going. Stupid girl. I did not care where I was going, for I was so sure I was in his heart the whole time. He would tell me such things. Porpha, he said, all of the arrows of love have pierced my till now most insensible heart, and has left me swooning at your feet. My passion is as a river flowing all the way through time, gliding over all problems and finding its way to the sea. Rather you, at least. Be the one who makes me a better person. Be my beautiful mermaid, the siren I cannot resist, the star that guides my lost ship home. No, all of this you already are without even having to try. Hackened phrases, to be sure, but then love had never whispered in my ear, and in my naivety, I drank every drop. I even esteemed myself fortunate, and up until then, perhaps I was fortunate. At least I was happy. But then, he introduces me to his friends, none of which I liked. A ruffianly gang with no distinction of right and wrong between them. I told Cupid upon my very first meeting with Gladstone, Blintex, and Montard that I was not sure if they were the best people he could be hanging out with. They had been drunk at the time and were talking a great deal about what they'd been smoking, stealing, sluts. I'd heard some of the rougher kids in my school talk so, but I'd never really hung out with them before. Another thing I didn't like was the way Gladstone kept touching my arm and looking at me as if I was a strange object he had never seen before. I was so relieved when Cupid and I walked away with his arm encircled around my waist. I let myself melt down onto his shoulder, and he teased me a little for believing I was too good for my friends. He even had the audacity to say I was a snob, and worse still, I had the stupidity to believe it. We were walking down the yellow and blue of sand and sea, hand in hand. I was laughing at a joke my darling Cupid had just made. Let me see, how did it go? Blintax was auditioning for Romeo in Romeo and Juliet, and Montard walked up to him, the latter being there for moral support, slapped him on the back and said, "Break a leg." But Blintax was so drunk, he walked out onto the stage, and the very first thing he did was walk out too far, and he ended up falling right off the stage. My darling at this point laughed, and I did too. Blintax fell awkwardly and had to go to A&E. How my lover said it with glee. He really did break a leg. I told him off for being so heartless towards his friends. I might not like them, I said, but I thought they were your mates. There's no need to be so serious, Porpha, he told me blinkingly. Although indeed I was not being serious, and he was not blinking from surprise, but merely because he had the sun in his eyes. He took me gently by the shoulder and pivoted me so I was facing him. Why do people say that night is the time for romance? The day sparkles like a brilliant jewel and is all the more valuable for letting me see you so clearly. I blushed and looked down like the enamoured silly dear I was, and we walked on. The waves lapped up our feet, and I lapped up his words. Love is a very beautiful and very silly thing. At least the type of love I had for Cupid was like that. It was young, without wrinkles, with a full set of pearly whites, and I believed it was a healthy thing because to me, it was a beautiful thing. In actuality, what it was a beautiful and sick wrong. I had gone shopping with Cupid and his friends one day, and had noticed that they had all, my darling Cupid included, had taken things from the shops and not paid for them. I stayed, still-faced as Medusa, whilst they laughed, gambled and conned people like the ruffians they were. Indeed, I was so angry that I told them goodbye and started to make for home by myself. Cupid ran after me as my high heels started to shout their way home. What is wrong, Porpha? Don't play dumb with me. Gave me a couple of blinks and then asked me in a very quiet, calm, brave tone to explain myself. You and those other hooligans you were with, can you explain to me why you steal those things from those shops? You've been stealing t-shirts and chain necklaces and chocolate, all of which I know you full well have the money to pay for. Cupid smirked at me a little, then put his arm around my shoulder. It's fun! You should try it! I gasped and disengaged his arm from my shoulder. I started to walk away, but then... Are you scared, Porpha? I thought you were better than that. I thought I could have fun with you, but you really are a snob and conceited too. I continued to walk away from him, but a tear glistened in my eye. Still, he talks to me, taunting me, even going so far as to follow me. You think there is something wrong with me? I'm sure, but you're wrong. If you can't have fun, if you can't live a little while you're young, then there's something wrong with you. That last remark of his hit me in the face like acid. I turned on my 6-inch heel and started to make my rather loud way back to the mall. I'm just about to enter next when Cupid grabs me by the arm and draws me a little away from the entrance. We're going to show you how to do it first. We rejoin his little gang and they show me what to do. Where to conceal the stuff, how to surreptitiously take the barcodes of the products, how to create a diversion if people do suspect you. I have stolen 1 or 2 worthless things like this t-shirt and this skirt. But most of the time I just take the stuff they give me and find a place to hide it. Oh no, that's my father. Why is he here? I thought he didn't even know this place existed. The gang and I are supposed to have this place all to ourselves.
Porpha, I have gotten a very serious call from Cupid's mother, and I'm going to need to speak to you.
No.
I'm sorry.
I mean, I'm busy. Can't it wait?
What are you doing? Don't make me force the door. Porpha. Very well. You leave me no choice.
Father, don't come in just yet. I'm busy. How do I stop him? I'm just changing my clothes.
You know, Porpha, I'm really not sure I believe you.
Why would I lie?
Porpha, This is not a joke. I'm going to give you a couple of minutes and then I'm coming in.
But that's not fair.
Why are you changing your clothes?
For your information, I just had a bath and wanted to put some clean clothes on.
Then why didn't I hear the water run?
Why are you being like this? Who could have possibly called you?
Time's up, young lady.
Wait!
I just received a very interesting call from Cupid's mother.
Oh yeah? What about?
She discovered a stack of stolen goods that friend of yours purloined, and I was just wondering if you knew anything about this.
No.
Cupid told his mother everything, Porpha.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't want to, but he said if I didn't, I was a chicken. Please forgive me. I'm really sorry.
Sometimes sorry just isn't good enough. I'm going to think about what we are going to do. In the meantime, let's go home.
My father and I walked home that night in total silence, excepting my sobs, of course. But it felt like he couldn't even hear them. If he did, he didn't care that I was genuinely sorry for what I had done. All he could think about was how bad I was, how that made him look to everyone else. And I believed that I must be all bad too. After all, who would steal when they don't need to? That night, I left the house without him knowing and gathered all of the stolen goods. I made a bonfire out of them, watched as the smoke of my sin tried to reach its way to heaven. Could not. Instead, it withered with the grace of a charmed snake. I work hard at Hephasti Smithy now, but he hasn't started talking to me yet. Not properly, anyway. I try and I try and I try my best, letting the tears burn up inside me as I work with fire and metal. Stars and sparks tremble their sorry way out of my eyes, but nobody sees it. And nobody cares.
Does anyone else remember the riddle where you're in a cold room and the power is out? You have a pile of logs, an oil lamp, an old newspaper, a chair leg, and a match. Which one do you like first? Answer? The match. I love riddles and wordplay. What starts with an E, ends with an E, and has a letter inside of it? Any guesses? Well, the answer is envelope. Sorry, I'm going off topic here. I'm just procrastinating my problems about the riddles. Does anyone else do that? I don't know. Basically, I have one big problem and a few smaller ones, depending on the way you want to look at it. So, basically, I need to help my mate Gary find his missing dog, while at the same time help Tony to build a cart around his ladder. I also need to help my neighbour Betty wash her windows on Tuesday, and Letty, her sister, I need to help her wash them on Wednesday because the weather is meant to be better for it. I'm also meant to help my friend Charlie throw a surprise birthday party for Greta, only Greta does not want to have one. And then I'm meant to go to Aunt Doris to her house and fit a light in. And also, I need to do a food shop because the only thing that in my fridge that I have is a jar of mayonnaise. Also, I have one big problem. Is that I had a have a bit of a bad back. Notice how I have placed myself at the bottom of the list. Apparently everybody else's needs come first. Ow! I'm going to put my back out, washing the windows and doing the ladders. I guess I'm going to have to be selfish and go to a doctor. Otherwise I cannot do anything for anyone. It feels as if someone has set a fire to my spine. That I have fire dancing up and down my spine and that I'm about to burst into the flames. I would not be surprised if these flames turn me into death. Ash is something that is dead. It's the remains of something that is unrecognizable and being burnt, and it's waiting for a gust of wind to blow it away. Yes, yeah, I'll make sure I'll get the report done. I refuse to be an ash. I'd much rather be a match. A match that starts a fire. If I was a match, I could light up a whole room. Sure, I might not be able to light up the whole room because I'm only one match. But I can make a start. I can do good things. I can do great things. I could help people. And that would create a domino effect. More matches, more good, more goodness in the world. I refuse to be an ash. But first, I must look after myself. I must look after my back. I must make that doctor's appointment so I can ignite the fire inside of me.
Yes, it certainly is raining cats and dogs out there. That's what people say sometimes. Which is ridiculous because it doesn't make any sense. But somehow people just seem to know what it means, so it doesn't cause confusion as much as you'd think. And funny for me, I find it really difficult not to say. Because I like both cats and dogs, but mostly cats. I think I could always be a cat, because we share many personality traits, like lack of empathy, a short attention span, and a solitary nature. I had previously noted that I do identify as a cat, like Bruce Jenner identifies as a woman. Mr. Mahone said I can't say that because it might offend people, so I don't know how Bruce Jenner gets away with it. Probably because he's an Olympic gold medalist and I'm just a boy with a 20-metre swimming certificate. Anyway, I've been offending people for as long as I can remember, which is August the 5th, 1977. So it didn't really make much difference to me, and I just carried on saying it anyway. Mr. Mulhern told me that Bruce Jenner doesn't identify as a he and is in fact a she and is called Caitlyn Jenner. So afterwards, I tried to get people to call me Nibbles after my cat that got run over by a lorry, but it didn't really catch on. The rain runs down the window to join the new trails of rain. It's like a road map of a city, and the new trails of rain run down the roads like cars. God, it really is raining cats and dogs out there, isn't it? My little brother Alexander painted this for me earlier while we were waiting. H really loves to paint. It's all he really does. Our caseworker Samantha said that painting's a good way to express how you're feeling without actually talking, which is good for Alexander because he doesn't really talk that much. And the only person he really talks to is me. He doesn't really like to talk to other people. Barnaby, he said, do you like it? So I squinted my eyes like this. And I did that because I wanted to show that I was really giving my full attention, because people seem to think that I'm not when I really am. It's a painting of two people holding hands and a house with a tree either side. The upstairs window is smashed, or maybe just really dirty. Yes, Alexander, it's really good, I said. Very impressive work. That's what I said to him. It's actually pretty terrible. The people don't have noses. And like I said before, it's unclear what the maintenance issue is on the upstairs window. I mentioned these things to him, but in a kind way. My old teacher, Mr. Mulhern, said to me once that I should be kinder to people, and even if I don't like it sometimes, I should pretend that I like it, so that they like me. Mr. Mulhern was full of good advice like that. He was a really good teacher. Just sad that he wasn't a really nice person. Our caseworker, Samantha, spoke to us earlier. I like our caseworker, Samantha. She brought PC Stanlake with her. I like him too, but in a different way. I'd met them both before, but in different ways. So that was quite an interesting development for me. She brought 2 packs of Morrison's own brand fresh donuts. I'd earlier mentioned to her that I enjoyed them as a treat. She's a very good listener. Maybe she's the best listener that I've ever known. People don't always listen to me, and that makes me very angry. I only eat donuts on rare occasions, as regular ingestion of high calories can cause major health concerns. Did you know that? It's true, but I feel like this is a rare occasion, so I was excited to eat them. There was one that was custard filled, and then the other one was apple filled, which I'd also mentioned to her were my favourite flavours. I sometimes wonder whether Samantha had a photographic memory like me. I should ask her. Should I ask her? Is it okay to ask? Because I asked a lady at the Five Guys Burger and Chips why she was wearing a skirt when it was really cold. That she should buy some trousers like mine, and everyone laughed and said that I shouldn't say that to her. I still don't know why. It was really cold. I was just concerned. I got these for you two. I thought you might be getting a bit peckish. That's what our caseworker Samantha said. She was smiling and her voice made me feel calm. Have you heard her voice? It makes me feel very calm. PC Stanlake wasn't smiling, but I could still trust him, because you're supposed to trust police officers, aren't you? Unless they're American, or if you're a black person. Which is why I trust you. That's how I always eat apples and custard donuts when they're available, because I like the way they taste together. When I did it earlier, PC Stanley raised his eyebrows and our caseworker Samantha laughed out loud. I wasn't exactly sure why, but I suspect it was because this isn't not how people usually eat donuts. And it's funny when people do things different to what everyone else does. I think that if people tried it, do they think that it was a nice way to eat donuts? It's important to try everything once. I heard my teacher, Mr. Mulhern, said that once, but it wasn't about donuts. PC Stanley asked me about Mr. Mulhern. He said, Barnaby, I'd like to ask you some questions about Mr. Mulhern. He has a scary voice, and that's not his fault, because people can't help the way they sound.
Questions, because it makes me feel like I'm in a video game or something, and there are multiple answers to things I can choose from. I can lie, I can tell the truth, I can be happy, be angry, or I can stay silent. However, I knew I was going to tell the truth in this case, because lying to a police officer is a criminal offence, and that's why I'll tell you the truth too. I woke up at 2:13, which is very unusual for me, because I usually sleep from 10 PM till 7:30 AM without any disturbances. I once slept through a huge thunderstorm that caused a lot of flooding in my town, and 2 old people died. The news had named the storm Kevin, which I thought was nice, because that's the same first name as Kevin McAllister from Home Alone. The Gables didn't think it was nice, I think mainly because all their possessions were lost and got destroyed in the flood. That's why Alexander and I got moved back into the children's home. And then we got moved to Mr. Mulhern's when he adopted us. Anyway, I woke up at 2:13 AM and I was so thirsty. I really didn't want to get up, because Mr. Mulhern was always... his house was always cold. It'd been like that ever since we moved in. But I knew I had to, because I was just so damn thirsty. I got out of bed, tidied the Jurassic Park quilt cover out so the bed was neat again, and then left my room. There's a skylight in the roof of Mr. Mulhern's house, and I could see the moon shining through. It was a crescent moon, which some people call a half moon, but they're incorrect, because it's not a half at all. It's more like 2/5 of a moon. As I was making my way down the staircase, I noticed 3 things that were unusual. 1, the door to Mr. Mulhern's room was open, which is unusual because he always closes it when he goes to bed. 2, the door to Alexander's room was closed, which was unusual because Alexander was afraid of being enclosed in spaces, so he always kept his door open because his room is quite small. 3. I could hear a deep, whispering voice, which was unusual because it was now 2:13 a.m, which is an unsociable hour for people to be talking. This, however, could be explained because Alexander used to get nightmares when he lived at the children's home, and I assumed maybe Mr. Mulhern was comforting him after another nightmare. I must have forgotten how thirsty I was, because I decided to walk across the landing and put my ear up to Alexander's door. Actually, he had the sort of plaque fixed to his door that said his name in bright yellow lettering that Mr. Mulhern had brought him when we first moved in. So I put my ear against it.
Quiet to hear.
It sounded like Mr. Mulhern.
I'm not sure why, but I decided to open the door. It was only closed too. The door. Mr. Mulhern was stood over Alexander's bed. His silhouette was against the bedroom window. He was wearing a robe that was undone and open, and he wasn't wearing anything underneath. I remember he was breathing quite heavily. Alexander was sat upright in his bed looking at Mr. Mulhern, both of them illuminated by Alexander's nightlight, which shines the outline of the stars all around the room. I remember the stars looked really nice. Alexander was scared. I'd never seen him look so scared. Mr. Mulhern whispered again, but this time I could hear him. It's important to try everything once, Alexander. I didn't even push him that hard. I really didn't think I'd push him that hard. You should never lie to a police officer because it's a criminal offence. Our caseworker, Samantha, spoke to PC Stanlake earlier. She'd been speaking to Alexander whilst I was talking to PC Stanley. Alexander was painting again in the next room. I could hear him. I could see him through the door. That kid really does love to paint. I hoped that Alexander had taken my earlier critique on board and that his latest work was higher standard. I'm never going to let anything happen to him ever again. Our caseworker, Samantha, looked at me afterwards and I didn't recognise or understand her face. One time she drew out lots of expressions on faces for me and explained to me what they all meant. I have it all in my wall at home between my Doctor Who poster and my light switch. She was smiling at me, but it didn't look like a smile very much. Her eyes were wet and sparkling. They looked like the sparks from Alexander's nightlight. It really does look like a road map, doesn't it? Road map window.
Hello, how are you?
Pleasant without the surprise. The giant from the fields told me you'd come. I'm happy, I really am, just not surprised. Sorry.
Oh, don't be silly. I know he told you I was coming. Said he brought you flowers. Very popular, aren't you?
Yep. Had half a dozen visitors, including you. Excessive, but as is custom. Everybody feels obliged, especially when the staff ask them to. You know, I fooled them, right? Have they told you yet?
Fooled them?
The staff. Doctor and her lackey visited me earlier. I could tell they'd burst a blood vessel if they didn't feel validated in some way, so I lied. But, like the best of lies, it had a shred of truth. They couldn't help it. It's perfume too sweet, and they bought it instantly.
What did you say?
I told them I was jealous.
Jealous? You really mean that?
Shush. Yes, jealous. That much is true. Although there's more to it. I'm not rash, I swear. It isn't envy-induced imitation. I just had to give them something. They're an onanistic lot, so obsessed with their titles and authority to diagnose. The doctor would sooner stuff her hand between her thighs than put pen to paper. And the nurse who follows her might as well get hold of his cock instead of a syringe. It practically came when I said I was jealous. A breakthrough, they moaned as they edged closer to another successful diagnosis. Oh, I'm sorry. I do apologize. I didn't mean to be so crude.
It's okay. I just don't know why you'd be jealous. Remember how paranoid you were about everyone else? I thought you might lock us all into glass cabinets if you could.
I would have. Even in a place like this, I would have. Hypocrisy, yeah. I was aware of that. Every time I wished to change at all, I knew I was being a hypocrite. Jealousy was anger on my sadness. I never saw his videos, so I could only assume how long he thought on it. But I knew what I wanted before he took it. That's the point. I couldn't take without being called derivative, without being diagnosed like I am now. That's jealousy, all right. He took it before I could. Tragedy on top of tragedy.
Perhaps we should talk about something else.
I already heard how many kittens the cat had.
Anything you haven't heard?
I doubt it. Gossip is the only way to pass the time for some visitors.
Doesn't have to be news then.
Are you implying that we reminisce?
We have time to, though there's always silence if you'd like. Just don't let me forget I have to give you some clean clothes before I leave.
My clothes keep getting lost here. That's why I have this on. I won't take it off lest I become naked. I can't really remember any clothing in particular, anything that he wore. I saw a nice coat of his once, grey I think. He was wearing it on Christmas when he came through the door. He also had sportswear. That really suited him. Athletic. He was the personification of athletic, even without sportswear. He embodied a lot of things.
Remember his nickname?
I couldn't forget that. And all because he could throw a man over his shoulders, send him miles and miles away. Smart too. His degree didn't have to be honorary. His friends from uni told me he could argue with his lecturers. I just wished I could have hugged him that week. A handshake wasn't enough. Kind words weren't enough.
We got to see him though. We all watched the World Cup together.
It was fortunate. You remember how I used to disagree with him? It was happiness between us in the end. We watched films together. It was fun. I'm grateful for that. Perhaps he knew we loved him. I hope he knows that now.
Earlier, you said it was jealousy. Maybe it's sadness or regret.
Regret that he beat me to it? Perhaps. And sadness? That's nothing to my decision. Oh, please, let's not do this. I only just conquered the staff. Why should you replace them?
If you ever expected anybody to be able to make peace with this, the least you could do is elaborate on the reason.
Could have just got bored. Is that reason enough?
Reason enough if you can tell me why.
A reason for the reason. It isn't exactly boredom. Idleness may be the word. I don't know. I could describe it 100 different ways, but I could not define it. At the cost of extinguishing, a candle ignites in the dark if only to see again. I ignite all the time to try and make sense of it all, and it's equally exhausting. Why can we respond to one bad day with a sleeping pill, but not the sum of our bad days with a dose to match?
I'll have to go soon. Visiting hours are almost over.
Now, don't be like that. You're not the type to leave here breathless after visiting time.
This is just all too much, though. You've made it very awkward for me. Did you mean to do that?
Have I made you uncomfortable again? I apologize. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to make you upset.
The doctor told me you might come home after formal visitors. Our support, I was told, had brought out the very best in you. And now, am I to say it was all a lie?
I might just be free again. Please, you mustn't. I understand. I can sympathize. I know what you mean by awkward, but you mustn't.
If I mustn't, then I've killed you. It's not fair to make me do that. You wouldn't have let him make you do that.
I know. I told you I was a hypocrite, but I can't stay here. Not in here. If I were ever going to stay, I'd have to be free again.
Will you try?
I'm always trying.
I can't do it.
Remember that game we used to play? We'd tie a blindfold around our eyes in the garden, have the others spin us until we stepped off in the direction of the trampoline or the pond. The trampoline was a soft fall that sent us high into the heavens, and the pond was a rude plunge into the deep. Where I am, where the staff would keep me, is neither. There's no trampoline or pond here. I'm just left spinning. And that's the worst, isn't it? We never would have risked walking into the pond if we hated it more than spinning.
I need to get going.
Is our time up?
I hope not.
What will you tell the staff?
I'll tell them I brought you some clean clothes.